to us criminal activity by their students. And until they give us that list, they're not getting any more grants from Homeland
Good.
Security.
I think we should pull it back.
We did.
The students they have, the professors they have,
Right.
the attitude they have is not American, and I think you should. A grant is a grant. We don't have to give grants.
Exactly right.
So we'll pull back the grant. All right. Very good.
Right.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Jay Jensen, political fisherman in the house. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you rolling up. All right, we're going to play that clip again from the president, and we'll get rolling. Can everybody hear me now? So here we go.
Yeah, and it's very
Where are
serious.
these people coming from?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
sir, we pulled back their grants because Harvard isn't responding to us criminal activity by their students. And until they give us that list, they're not getting any more grants from Homeland
Good.
Security.
I think we should pull
Yeah.
it back.
We did.
The students they have, the professors they have,
Right.
the attitude they have is not American, and I think you should. A grant is a grant. We don't have to give grants.
Exactly right.
So we'll pull back the grant. All right. Very good.
Right.
Thank you very much for rolling up. Political fisherman Jay Jensen in the house. Now you can hear me. Fantastic. On this eve of Memorial Day. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you stepping up. I wanted to cover this story because Donald Trump has absolutely hammered Harvard. We're going to get into exactly what he did. They've pulled the grants, but done even more. Now Kristi Noem has removed their ability to bring in foreign students. They cannot grant academic visas anymore. They cannot give any new foreign students access to Harvard or access to the United States of America. And any foreign student currently at Harvard has to transfer or they're going to be deported. They're out. Their student visa will be revoked. This is massive for Harvard. We're going to watch because Kevin O'Leary weighs in on this, and he looks at everything from a commercial perspective. And a lot of what he says I agree with until I came across this video, which I want you to see by Mike Benz, which shows just how deep the rabbit hole of anti-American activity goes in academia and just how connected they are to the administrative state, the establishment, the blob, and the CIA, and how ugly this is, and why Donald Trump, I am so for him absolutely uprooting this, getting rid of this stuff by the roots, cutting it off so that it never happens again. He is doing battle with the administrative establishment state everywhere that he can. So we're going to dive into that. Thanks so much for being here. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Chris Highland Show. But I am sporting my Tottenham shirt as Tottenham hoisted the trophy in North London today. Anybody who doesn't know Premier League soccer, this will mean nothing to you. But as a longtime Tottenham supporter, mired in mediocrity for the last 10 years, we have finally won a trophy. It's fantastic. So I'm excited. So now let's dive right in. I want to show you this clip by Kevin O'Leary, who's talking about the fact that Harvard no longer has the ability to sponsor foreign students. Resnap in the house. All right, winning, winning, winning. Yes, sir. Here we go.
Harvard student visa program, Harvard suing. Okay, I got all that. You're an executive fellow there. What do you make of this strong move against Harvard?
It's so clear as to what has to happen. The president of Harvard has to call the president of the United States, get behind closed doors, and work out a deal. But let me assure you something about these international students. I teach them. These are the smartest students in the world. Harvard is the oldest educational institution. These students are extraordinary individuals, and they don't hate America. They want to come here and stay in America, and they want to figure out a way that they can start a business in America, and we want them. We want them here. I want to invest in them. I've already invested in 2 of them. These are the brightest and the best from around the world, and they're coming for the American dream. Now, Harvard has to talk to the president to president. Now, this has to get worked out. When I go back there to teach in the fall, I want the best and brightest, because I, along with millions of other investors, want them to stay in America. Why don't we vet them first, check their backgrounds, clear them, and tell them, you graduate Harvard, you're an engineer or whatever, you stay here and you start a business here, and you'll get funded here, and you'll create jobs here, because that's why you came here in the first place. These people do not hate America.
Okay, we'll leave it right there. Cheer up.
Now, I agree with Kevin O'Leary on that fact. I think the vast majority of foreign students who come to this country absolutely they are itching to get to America. They want to be here. They want to start businesses. They want to figure out a way to be here permanently. They want to get rid out of whatever country they're coming from. The vast majority. Are there a few bad eggs? Absolutely. Are there some that are 100% anti-Semitic, that are all in with Hamas and the pro-terrorism crowd? Absolutely. And they all need to be gone. That's not what this fight is about. This fight, and I think this is where Trump is coming from, is about so much more than this. This is about Harvard's un-American, woke, garbage politics. It's not about the foreign students themselves, but this is a way to really hammer Harvard. The US government can stop all grants to Harvard, all research grants. They can stop all federal funding of student loans. They can do all of that. And now they can take away the last cash cow that Harvard has. This is a way to stick it to Harvard and, by proxy, all of academia, and get everybody back on the same page. Because there is such a level of globalist cabal, establishment state activity at Harvard. I want to show you this clip from Ben's, because like I said, normally I'd be all in with O'Leary. Yes, the president of Harvard needs to sit down with President Trump, and they need to work out a deal. But part of that deal is that Harvard needs to be absolutely divested from their globalist cabal, establishment state tentacles. Everything that goes back to the Pentagon, the State Department, the CIA, all of that, all the money that has flowed into Harvard so that they can be essentially a CIA proxy. And that's where the real danger lies. And that's what has to be rooted out. So let's dive in, because I want you to hear from Mike Benz, who lays this out. This is a fairly long clip. We'll interrupt it a couple times, but I want you to hear this, because this is not something I knew about the academic institutions. I knew they were woke. I knew they were disgusting. I knew they were cesspools. I had no idea that they were inextricably linked with the blob. Check this out.
I just want to tee you up. You know, Harvard is such a node, a nexus point of all of these sort of, I don't know, globalist ops, clandestine ops, who knows, whatever you want to call it. You can articulate it better than I can. But walk us through your thoughts on Secretary Noem's letter.
Well, Harvard is the university supercenter of the blob. Harvard is very much not what it seems, but what's happening right now is something very seismic. Just like when Trump went after USAID in the first month in office and sort of walked up to one of the meanest, toughest, baddest gang members in prison on day one, Trump, who has picked a fight with the universities because of the abject corruption of the entire university system, has walked up to the biggest, baddest of the universities with a $50 billion endowment and probably the highest pedigree of any university in this country in terms of how it's publicly known, and moved to totally decimate many aspects of their relationship with the U.S. government, which are vast. Harvard predates the founding of this country by almost a century, actually. What's happened today is a move to ban not just all student visas, so no new international students at Harvard. They're not allowed to get new international students in from this day forward, but in addition, all existing international students must transfer to another school. So they are not just not allowed going forward, but all of the existing international students will have to go to a different university. Now, the Trump administration has said this is because of non-compliance with federal government edicts. They gave several reasons. Anti-Semitism was one, harboring violence was another, non-compliance with DEI edicts was another, non-cooperation with efforts to reduce CCP and Chinese influence over the universities. They basically threw the kitchen sink at Harvard. And understand, coming into the Trump administration, Harvard is set to receive $9 billion in existing grants from the U.S. federal government. $9 billion of subsidies from the federal government. I mean,
Think about that. So Harvard's got a $50 billion endowment. Well, no wonder they've got a $50 billion endowment. They're getting $9 billion a year. It only takes you 5 years to accumulate, 6 years to accumulate a $50 billion endowment when you're getting $9 billion in federal government slush money. This is why if institutions of higher learning want federal money, then they have to toe an America First line. Otherwise, get out and you go fund yourselves, and you can be as independent as you want. But this nonsense, this suckling at the tit of government funds to the tune of $9 billion has to stop. And Benz is going to get into just how nefarious this gets.
If you can just think of the scale of that money, a lot of people think that Harvard rose to its prominence because it's the best, it hires the best, it's got the strictest admission rates. Well, if you tried to create a university to compete with Harvard, you're not competing with Harvard. You're competing with the U.S. federal government, who is propping up Harvard and picking Harvard as the winner. The reason they can afford to hire the highest pedigreed scientists or have the facilities that they can offer and research resources they can offer to their students and faculty is because it's paid for by you, the taxpayer. So it's not a level playing field. They get a giant super boost. Now, the Trump administration last week actually killed $2.2 billion worth of that $9 billion. And then 5 days ago, removed another $450 million. So Harvard is now scrambling into the financial space, into the private equity world, and into the donor world to try to frantically offset that funding. And then in the middle of this, the student visas are being revoked for international students and the transfers are being forced, which means Harvard's ability to recapitalize by going to foreign sources may also be greatly impeded, because a lot of the donations that come from foreign countries come from elites in foreign countries who make giant donations to Harvard, and then lo and behold, their sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, family mascot, and cousin's dog are enrolled at Harvard. It is a
So think about just the financial scam, and maybe scam's the wrong word, but think about the financial mechanisms of Harvard. They charge an inordinate amount for tuition. Now they give away tuition, they give away scholarships and all that other stuff. So a bunch of US students go to Harvard, but there is a whole swath of slots at Harvard that are not open to US students. They are given away to foreign students. And are they given away to the best and the brightest? Some of them. But just like he said, a lot of them are given away in a pay-to-play scheme. Whoever donates the most to Harvard gets to get their son, daughter, relative into Harvard because they've made millions, billions of dollars of donations to Harvard, and therefore their student gets preferential treatment. Plus, all of those foreign students are paying full boat. There's no scholarships for them. They're paying full ride. So it is a giant cash cow for Harvard, which Trump has now gutted about $3 billion of their federal funding. He needs to gut all 9 of it. If you ask me, he needs to do it for every single university. Stop this nonsense until they adopt a 100% America First agenda and get out of the DEI and the woke and the un-American nonsense. but meanwhile, also caving their ability to go to foreign sources. This is great by Trump.
A pay-to-play scheme when it comes to these sorts of contributions to get your children in to places like Harvard and the Ivy League, and with less leverage to be able to offer to foreign countries because they can't guarantee a slot simply by paying their way in. This is yet another crisis for the university. I have a lot of thoughts on beyond that, but I can pause there. It's phase one.
We've been seeing going on with the resistance and opposition to President Trump. Obviously, the Center for Nonviolent Protest under Erica Chenoweth has been partnering with Democratic members of Congress to train their, paramilitary forces how to oppose President Trump. Can you sort of bring us up to speed how we've seen them weaponized against Trump 2.0?
Totally. Virtually every center, institute, and department at Harvard is weaponized against the Trump administration at every level, through their back channeling with intelligence, through their back channeling with the State Department, through their back channeling with the defense sector, through their back channeling with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, multinational corporations, through their back channeling with the NGOs. You gave the example of Erica Chenoweth, as well as her co-author of one of her recent books, Maria Stephan. The two of them are both associated with the Harvard Belfer Center. The Harvard Belfer Center is one of these heart of darkness places within Harvard that is tightly involved in organizing what they call nonviolent action, which is a total hoax term. It's a whenever you say.
So I want you to realize what he just said there. Almost every department, center department at Harvard is aligned against President Trump, against America, against any kind of populist movement. They are in bed with the State Department, the CIA, the DOD, the NGOs, the globalist cabal. And this isn't just Harvard. This is all of them. It's Yale, it's Penn, it's all of them. It's not just the Ivy League. It's University of Wisconsin, it's Stanford, it's Berkeley, it's all of them. Everybody is suckling on the government teat of money, and they are all in bed with the globalist establishment state, the DS. Yes, they are in there with the administrative state. This goes back to all of the CIA programs, the CIA mind control programs that were hosted not just out of Harvard, but out of Berkeley, out of Stanford. It goes back to the whole Manson situation in California. If you've read the book Chaos, which I highly recommend that you do, and think about just how embedded the administrative state, the State Department, DOD, CIA blob has inundated itself into our centers of higher learning in order to be a proxy arm for them. Let's keep going.
Say nonviolent action. What they mean is the end stages of a color revolution where violent protesters who are not killing people with machine guns, but are rather throwing Molotov cocktails in police cars and breaking glass and setting buildings on fire, but they're not killing everyone as they do it. They're simply destroying everything and terrorizing everyone. They call that nonviolent action. Now, if I take a sip of water, I don't have to say that I'm nonviolently taking a sip of water. That phrase in and of itself connotes, at the very least, quasi-violent action, but it's all done through orchestrating mobs. And Erica Chenoweth and Maria Stephan, both at the Harvard Belfer Center, have been so-called scholars in this space. These are these operators who masquerade as being researchers. So they write white papers, they write academic literature on the science of how to organize a riot. How do you mobilize youth engagement? What messaging works? And then they also hold
Mike, we're coming up against a break, so I'm going to hold you there. I know the audience is going to kill me. We've got to go to commercial break. I'm sorry. Mike Benz, I think we still got you. If you can sort of...
Okay, so think about that. So you've got DOD, State Department, CIA money to the tune of billions flowing into Harvard and other institutions of higher learning to fund activities like Erica Chenoweth and these others who are figuring out how do we sponsor quote unquote nonviolent action, which always becomes violent. Essentially, how do we create and mobilize and point at a target mobs within other countries in order to do things like affect a color revolution. For those of you who don't know or don't remember, the color revolution was the Ukrainian revolution in 2014, where the US essentially overthrew the government in favor of our preferred government, because that government was leaning towards Russia in its loyalties. And God forbid we can't have that happen. So the US jumped in and overthrew the government, staged a coup. So this is what the US government has been doing around the world, involving us, destabilizing nations, involving us in it so that corporations, centers of higher learning, everybody can get rich, they can generate money, they can create instability, and they can further foment the military-industrial complex. And eventually, where needed, get us into actual shooting wars where they generate trillions vis-a-vis the entire failed Mideast escapade that has gone on since 9/11. Now let's keep going.
Walk us through again this idea that it's President Trump who is going after Harvard. That's victim blaming. He's the one that has been, the MAGA movement, assaulted by this institution and its kind for years. Pick up where you left off.
Harvard is not a university, it's a business. Harvard University is run by a 12-person board through the Harvard Corporation. The Harvard Corporation is what runs Harvard University. And the head of the Harvard Corporation is Penny Pritzker. Penny Pritzker was previously the chair of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. If that sounds familiar, it's because that's the organization that was run for 7 years by Bill Burns, the man elected by Joe Biden to be the head of the Central Intelligence Agency. Harvard is essentially a foreign policy tool that merges financial markets with intelligence and statecraft to impact global policy, foreign policy, and the domestic drivers of foreign policy, which include running out a president who might oppose a foreign policy that interferes with Harvard's bottom line. Harvard invests deeply in.
Harvard is a clandestine subsidiary of the blob, of the DoD, State Department, CIA apparatus. They are an apparatchik of the apparatus. That is exactly what Harvard and so many other of these universities are.
And has since the Cold War ended. Harvard has been deeply invested through the Harvard Endowment in seizing Eurasia from Russia, which puts Harvard directly at the center of Russiagate. In the 1990s, everyone can look up a great article called "The Harvard Boys Do Russia," or any deep dive you want to go down on a little place called the Harvard Institute for International Development and its role in privatizing and stealing the wealth of Central and Eastern European countries, and particularly Russia, during the 1990s. And if that name sounds familiar, the Harvard Institute for International Development may sound a little bit like the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. Harvard had its own USAID cell that got $500 million from USAID to be the long arm of USAID to loot the economic wealth of Russia in the 1990s in tandem with George Soros. Harvard was doing the dirty work of the U.S. government by putting its economists over there, by putting its liaisons over there, by building up a giant network over there, midwifing that process. And in return, the Harvard Endowment got non-competitive bids and private access at fire sale prices to the publicly held wealth of foreign countries. They did the same thing in Ukraine. They did the same thing all over Central and Eastern Europe. If there is neutrality with Russia, all of those assets and investments are threatened to go in the tank. Now, because the Harvard senior leadership and elite class has been completely merged with the CIA, the State Department, and the Defense Department, and USAID for 7 decades now, there has really been daylight between what Harvard has called for and what the Bush family or the Biden family or Obama family called for. As I mentioned,
Absolutely. They are nothing more than an outgrowth of the blob. They are fully subsumed by the DoD, State Department, CIA blob. And as such, that needs to be excised. Those connections need to be cut off. The cancer that binds the two together that has metastasized needs to be surgically removed, which is why I am all for Trump doing whatever it takes to separate institutions of higher learning from government funding, government influence, and all this other nonsense. because what they did in Russia, in Ukraine, in all of these Central Eurasian countries, they want to do in America. They want to oppose the sitting president of the United States, whose policies they do not like, because they impact their ability to launder money, launder US taxpayer money, and scam other nations, strip mine their wealth. That's what this is all about. It is all about money and power outside of the US government while they control the US government, and it can no longer be allowed to happen. So kudos to Trump for jumping in this fight and picking right on the number one university as a show of deterrence to every other university, that if we can do this to Harvard, we can do it to you. Begin getting rid of all of your blob ties. That's what needs to happen. They need to absolutely excise all of these ties so that the universities can go back to being exactly that, universities and nothing else. Now, thanks so much. Like I said, that was a long clip, but I wanted you to hear that because that was new information to me, just how deeply embedded the university system, the universities are with the entire blob and how that has to end. Thanks so much. Now, we've got a couple more stories. All this is happening while we continue to watch the Democrats self-immolate, which is just beautiful, more winning. So check this out because Hogg was on Charlemagne's show, which is just crazy nonsense. He was on Charlemagne's show and was talking about everybody's favorite Congresswoman, Jasmine Crockett. Here we go.
Jasmine Crockett.
Jasmine Crockett, I love her. She is amazing.
Yeah.
I think that people want to see somebody who fights and calls out the bullshit, ultimately. I think that's what Jasmine does, and we need a hell of a lot more people that are out there that are willing to do just that and call people out on their BS and not say, oh my God, Republicans are going to criticize me for saying this. Screw that. They're going to criticize you no matter what. So what we should be asking ourselves is, what are we really fighting for? Yeah. Because we know it matters, and I think Jasmine is frankly the type of leader that we're really looking to support in some senses, right? Somebody who is out there that frankly doesn't give a damn what the other side, at least the elected Republicans.
Holy moly. I hope they go down this road. Absolutely, David Hogg. Why don't you set up Jasmine Crockett, or as Black Conservative Perspective calls her, Jasmine Crotchet, set her up as the face of the Democrat Party. That would be a boom to the GOP because this woman is so universally disliked outside of the ultra-left far fringe of the Democrat Party. It is absolutely amazing. She is dumb as a box of rocks and a complete and utter communist leftist.
In Congress say what they believe in, and at least you know, even if you don't agree with her, you know what she stands for.
Yeah.
Because she makes it very clear. And people are really craving that right now. They don't want more politicians that say talking points that it doesn't even feel like they believe, or you don't even really know what they mean. They want somebody who's out there that says what they believe and doesn't care what somebody else thinks about it. They want that authenticity.
Oh, she's completely authentic in how much she dislikes the United States, how much she dislikes America first, how much she wants to absolutely hand it over to the globalist cabal. It's absolutely nuts. I mean, talk about 3 steps even worse than Kamala Harris. That's Jasmine Crockett. Put her as the face of the Democrat Party and see how that goes for you, David. Absolutely amazing. So the Democrats are self-immolating. Trump is taking on the university system and the blob. And all this is happening as we roll into Memorial Day. So I just want to give a shout out to everybody who has served. If you've served in our military, or if you have family members that have served, thank you so much. To those who have given the ultimate price, this weekend is about you. It is about us remembering those who paid with their lives or their limbs in many cases, so that we could have the freedoms that we enjoy, so that we could fight for this great republic. This is what we have to do. We, as Courageous Army, we need to stand up and fight on every level for our republic. So I want to leave you with this. As we roll into Memorial Day, just a reminder of what this is really all about and who the real heroes in our country are.
Mala, it's not enjoy the long weekend. It's I thank God for my life, for the stars and stripes, may freedom forever fly. Let it ring, salute the ones who died. ones that give their lives so we don't have to sacrifice all the things we love. Mala!
Absolutely. Thank you to everybody who served. Thank you to everybody, especially those who have given the ultimate price, their lives or their futures in terms of disability and those sorts of things. Thank you so much. We are grateful to you. We owe you a debt we can never repay. This country owes you a debt, and the freedoms that we enjoy are because of you and because of our great protector, God Almighty, who puts men and women like you on this planet who are willing to stand up so that this country can enjoy the freedoms that we have. Thank you so much. We wish you a wonderful Memorial Day. I hope everybody has a phenomenal weekend. We will see you again on Tuesday. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. Remember, God is good and he is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end. Till I catch you next time.